Hey Justin, how are you doing?
Hey Lou, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing good. I'm loving the painting behind you.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's a photograph by a photographer here in Portland. It's,
Wow.
it's up the river right in the city, so it's actually like half my view in the window. Also,
Wow, that's really nice.
yeah, he's cool. He does drone shots.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's beautiful. I thought it was a painting. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's on canvas too, so it has like a good look to it, a lot of colors and stuff.
that's pretty cool. But
How's your
yeah,
day going?
yeah, go ahead. The day going's okay. Yeah, the day's going okay. It's just been through these panels. Everything's going well. No complaints so far. How about yourself?
Yeah, my day's going good. It's still early here. It's only 10:30 here, so
It is. It is.
my
It
day
is.
started. Gonna knock out this panel. Do some. I was trying to do some networking. Got to connect with a few people before the panel, so it was cool.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, for sure. So I'm glad to hear that. I think we were waiting for two more people and then can get started
Yeah.
in about 2 more minutes. Yep.
Cool.
In the meantime, if I think there's another panel that's going on right now, tech panel, Trees
Yeah, the
moderating
tech
it.
panel.
Yeah, hopefully some people can trickle in from that in a little bit. But yeah, I'm excited to have you, Justin. Get started pretty soon. Okay.
Cool. Let's see. We have people watching us already.
Yeah, there you go. And I have Kimberly now.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Hey, Kimberly. Yes, I can hear you. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm trying to figure out how I can get my video on. Hmm.
Huh. Yeah,
Hopefully I figure it out.
yeah, for sure. And if not, no problem. We can hear you just fine.
Okay, good. Let's see.
And I believe we're just waiting for Colette, our last panelist, and we'll get started. This is a consulting panel, so thank you so much for being here. If you've just shown up, and Colette is, oh, hey, great.
Hey guys, sorry, I will hop off here.
It's my panel.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we have one more panelist, and we can get started. So, and if she's not here within the next minute or so, we'll get started without her, and we'll just get her caught up. But yet, this is a consulting panel, and just FYI, if you're just arriving on the platform now, I'm going to give you some background on how it works. So if you're on a computer or if you're on a tablet, again, on the right-hand side, there's going to be some buttons. If you want to do some networking, click on networking. You'll be matched up with them to have a conversation. If you want to apply for a job, meet some recruiters, go over to the expo section, and there will be different booths you can click on and have conversations with different folks. Okay. Okay. And hey, Colleen, good to see you. And Chris there. All right. All right, well, let's get started. We'll get Colette caught up when she gets here. Okay. All right, so
Sounds
first
good.
I'd like to get, yeah, for sure. I'd like to get started with some introductions. I'll start off and then we'll go to you, Kimberly, and then we'll move over to Justin. And if you all don't mind, could you just mute your mic if you're not speaking, please? And I'll do the same thing. All right, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so my name is Louis Masensi. If you haven't heard this before, I am the co-founder of touCanna. We're a tech company based out of Michigan for dispensaries mostly, and we are launching this month. And I am currently in Mount Clemens, Michigan. So if we could go around to Kimberly, tell us where you're currently located, what's your role in the industry, and what company you work for.
Absolutely. So I'm Kimberly Klein. It's nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you.
I work at Exclusive Brands at headquarters located in Livonia, and I am the business licensing administrator and social equity consultant for them. I just got started here in January, so I'm brand new to the industry, but learning tons and tons every single day. So I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Very happy to have you, Kimberly. And Justin.
Hi, I'm Justin Lipchitz with Realistic Consulting, based out of Portland, Oregon. I own a full-service consulting firm. We work in multiple states across the country, focused on compliance, operations, metric, inventory control, and technology.
So much. All right, well, let's get us started then. Justin, before you get into consulting, because right now you work with operators, so people who own dispensaries, grow facilities. Before you got started into consulting, what were you doing in cannabis and how did you transition into consulting?
Yeah, I moved to Oregon 6 years ago from the East Coast, hoping to get into the cannabis industry. Actually had to take a big step back and start in as a bud tender with Oregon's Finest here in Portland. Was able to work my way up really quickly to become their GM and ran 2 of their locations for 5 years before transitioning into consulting.
Ask you a follow-up question. So from my understanding, you started as a bud tender, so a cashier at a dispensary, worked up to being a GM, and now you're doing consulting. Who was your first consulting client and how did you get them?
Yeah, my first consulting client was another shop here in Oregon that's out on the Oregon coast. A friend of mine who was actually my inventory manager at Oregon's Finest had left and he was working for Greenbit's point of sale. That's Alex, who's actually watching us right now as well. And they were having trouble transitioning. They needed help with their metric. And, he said, hey, I got a buddy who knows all this stuff really well, can come help you guys. We went there and did the full implementation for them. And it kind of dawned on me that, wow, people need help. And I'm actually pretty good at doing this. So that kind of how it all snowballed.
Yeah, for sure. And so for those who don't know, for instance, uses the state itself, the body that regulates cannabis, they use a system called Metric. So it's a software system where each operating business, each dispensary, each grow, each processing have to report everything that they're doing with cannabis throughout the day to the state through that system. So it's a really complicated system to understand. So being a metric expert, so metric is METRC. If you want to look into that software, I would definitely encourage you to learn about it. People will use it for years to come. So if you become an expert at it right now, you will set yourself up for success, kind of like Justin did. So awesome. Thank you so much for that. So Kimberly, next question is for you. So for the people in the audience, what does a typical day in the life of a consultant in-house look like? So who do you work with typically and what do you do and what kind of problems do you try to solve?
Right, that's a great question because we have our own social equity program here at Exclusive Brands, and I don't charge for any consulting services or anything like that. Exclusive Brands covers everything. So luckily in this, hi Colette, how are you?
Hi everyone, sorry I'm late, sorry.
No, that's okay. I was wondering, could you mute your mic?
Okay, let's see.
Are you able to?
So important. Am
There
I
you
muted
go.
now? Okay.
You were a second ago.
No problem.
There you
We'll
go.
yeah.
Thanks. There was just a lot of feedback coming. So anyway, being a social equity consultant here at Exclusive Brands, like I was saying, I don't charge any of the clients or anything at all like that, but we do receive applications straight from our website. So I'll personally reach back out to anyone that applies for our social equity program. And then we just stay in touch. I try to get a feel for what they need for their business, what they need help with, and we maintain contact.
So then the people who are applying for those programs, what businesses are they and what type of help are they asking for?
So a lot of that, they range. It could be anything from a grow to a micro business, or they want their own provisioning center, or we get a lot of caregivers that want to get into having a micro business. And then sometimes they shift their idea like throughout their process. I've realized that it really depends on their municipalities where they're located. It's just easier to do certain things in certain municipalities, you know, so I never get surprised when a client comes in thinking that they want to do a Class A grow or something, and then they change it entirely, wanting to be like an event organizer. It ranges.
you essentially help people get started with their cannabis business with all sorts of help from what I understand.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of them, a lot of the social equity applicants, they've already started their savings. They already have a pretty well thought out business plan sometimes, and sometimes they don't. When they don't, because, the applying through the state is really daunting. You need a business plan, you need a tech plan, you need a security plan, all sorts of stuff. So sometimes there's applicants that have been growing for years and years. They have all this knowledge, they are familiar with metric, but they've never applied for a business license. So I created a business template and I just share it with our applicants if they don't have a business plan written out. We go over properties, land, for their business, and then I just try to get a feel for what they know, what they don't know, what they need, and then funding, right? That's always going to be a huge one.
Right,
so
yeah.
it's hard to determine how much we can comes to that, because at the end of the day, this is a business too. So I'm in a really interesting position here, working for the company, but also really being passionate about our social equity applicants.
Trying to get those other companies come up, and it's a little tricky because those companies could be your competition as well. So let me transition to Colette and see if we can get Colette on the line. Hey, you're currently muted, but if you unmute yourself, let's see if I can do it. Even unmute. Okay, all right, Colette. Oops, there you go. Try it one more time, please.
Myself.
We can hear you. Hey.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you perfectly. Could you give us a short intro, who you are, what you do, where you're located, please? Really
Sure, absolutely. Great. Sure. Great afternoon, everyone. I'm Colette Ramsey. I am the proud owner of Cannabis. I have about 6 companies, but specifically in this space for cannabis is Cannabis Advisory Group. I'm physically located out of Detroit, Michigan, but I have clients in Baltimore, Maryland, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, where I happen to be today with the USA CBD Expo and Conference this weekend, as well as Oklahoma and Arkansas. And so my focus is, I start off as a communications platform to educate the community about the business of the cannabis industry. And then that morphs into being able to identify individuals, to create business plans, to create an ideology, to identify strategic relationships, business models, funding models, and then I do lobbying and legislative support in those communities as well.
Colette, very happy to have you. So, question I have for you. So, when it comes to consulting, I guess, how do you go about finding new clients, or how do you market your services?
Sure, and prime example of being at this conference today. A lot of you have to make sure that you're in the space. So if I advise everyone, if you are interested in cannabis, it starts with CBD. There's, of course, this amazing conference that we're having right now, this career fair, but then conferences like this one I'm attending today with a client who happens to be speaking on social equity. So under my communications component, I created the presentation for social equity. So he would be able to present to all the attendees today about what that looks like. But literally, it's networking and it's being an expert at what you know. So if you are good in business, you might not have had a lot of experience in the cannabis space, but you're good at business. And so you can transfer your skill set of being a good assessor, a project manager, a detail organizer, all those dynamics into this space. But for me, it's literally relationship driven. And people that have known me in the business world, so okay, it's cannabis, but you need a business plan, Colette. Okay, it's cannabis, but they need to go through the licensing process, Colette. Okay, oh, it's cannabis, but I need real estate expertise, Colette. So I would implore everyone just to work to be a complete business entity as a consultant. A lot of people say, oh, well, no, they might stay in one lane. But for me, I've had a plethora of experiences in my career. And so I just have taken all of those and focused in the cannabis industry. But it starts with relationships.
Thank you so much. You touched on a couple of points we're going to actually hit on too, so thank you very much. On the ability to, let's say, if you have a certain set of skills, just use those and just apply them to the cannabis industry. The story I like to tell is before I got started, I came from the legacy market, which means just when things were illegal, I was involved in that market. But then once it became legal, my thought was, well, I want to open a dispensary. But then I realized that, first of all, it's very difficult. And on top of that, I didn't have the necessary skills, the business acumen, to probably run a business for that long and being successful. So what my second thought was, well, what do I know how to do? I know tech, I know some software, I know how to do support, database design. Well, why don't I try to see where the gaps are in the market and then apply that to maybe help something and boom. So yeah, definitely being able to transfer your skills is very important. I will double down on that. Thank you very much, Colette. So I want to swing back to you, Justin. So when it comes to networking, so let's say, for instance, someone's watching this for the first time and they're not in the industry. However, they're very excited about being in the industry. What would you tell them they can do today to actually connect with people like you and further their careers?
Yeah, I think, in today's scene with technology being the way it is, everyone's at your disposal. I don't think there's anyone that you can't get in touch with at this point, especially in cannabis. Nobody's really, nobody's like, you're not trying to, hit up LeBron James, like most of these people are all normal people for the most part still. Nobody's on that big celebrity level. So I think reaching out to people as much as possible, asking people to chat and network with you. If you see somebody doing something you like, hit them up and say, hey, let me see your product. Hey, let's talk about the industry. Louis, me and you met that way, right? Like we were on Clubhouse, a great way to network in this industry as well. I met you and Cree there. We talked. I got to see your platform. I got to tell you about what I did. We've actually been able to connect on other things now, and now I'm part of this conference, right? Like I would have never been part of this conference unless I put myself out there and reach out to you guys and try to build that relationship. So I think it's like that in life, in any industry that you're in. As Colette was saying, it's about who you know. People being able to refer you. My entire business has been word of mouth, thanks to people I've worked with in the industry who trust me and believe in me and say, oh, you need somebody? I got the guy for you. And just like I was saying, people know her and they respect her and her business acumen. So they send people her way, even though she might not, know every aspect of cannabis, but she knows how to put a great business plan together. So yeah, shoot high, like reach out to people who you might think will hit you back. Go to your favorite dispensaries and talk to the staff there if you're trying to, get a first job. Find people any way you can. We're still a very small industry and we're all know each other and people are always looking for help. So there's always a good way in.
100% agree. I couldn't agree more. And so I want to hear from Kimberly and Colette on the same subject. So Kimberly, do you have any advice on someone that's trying to meet people and they don't know how? What should they do? Would you echo what Justin said, or do you have any other thoughts on that?
And there's so many different ways, especially with social media right now, Clubhouse, Instagram, and just talking to people. I had no idea. I've known Cree since we were in 6th grade, and I had no idea that she was like in the cannabis and tech industry. And even me, I've been posting things on Instagram, and I've gotten like 30 messages like, wait a minute, you're in the cannabis. And so it's just a matter of getting out there, I think, getting on Clubhouse, getting on Instagram. Also, the MRA here in Michigan offers workshops too, and they always try to snag a variety of people, whether they're in the industry or not. I think that there's just a lot of different ways that a person can get into it. Googling LinkedIn, I get a lot of LinkedIn requests. And I'm going to share my email address as well. So just networking in general.
Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. Colette, anything to add?
Yes. And there I am. Absolutely. I think that when both Kimberly and Justice shared definitely fit. And I would also tell individuals to do your research. Like if you do the work and learn and pick up industry publications and news articles and read, and that helps you learn the players and the terminology in the industry, and then you can reach out to them as well. Because a lot of times, like in my formative years coming out of school, I would read about people in the newspaper and or the magazines, Black Enterprise, and I'd send them a note. And they responded to me because in the note, I was able to let them know that I knew something about what they did in the industry of interest. And people respect that you do the work instead of just coming and saying, hey, I'm here. Well, yeah, I want to help you, but I want you to help yourself as well. So I think that's a part of the networking and creating circles in social media. Have something to talk. For me, I always said from the communication side, information in the room. So I should be able to tell you, that Africa, Malawi, Lesotho, and Zimbabwe are in cannabis. I should be able to tell you that Colombia is moving through cannabis in Uruguay. So you got to be uniquely suited to know who you are and how you can enhance the industry. And then I think attach that to the networking because it's something that can help set you apart.
Thank you so much for that. You just mentioned. So how do you stay up to date on the news on what's happening in cannabis? Can you share some of those platforms for us?
Sure. In addition to the fact that I have the pleasure of hosting a weekly podcast on cannabis, that means every day in the news, every day, cannabis news, I Google and all the articles will come up and I read every article. So every day, that's a charge for me. So all of you all, every day, Google search cannabis news and see what comes up. And if you don't want it from an international perspective, you can do from a local market, Cannabis News Michigan, and see what's coming up, what the history has been, and read about those things. The information, people say that knowledge is power. I like to say that is power, and he who has the information can help shape the conversations. So you got to do the work. You need to read, and if there's in those conversations, you'll learn the terminology, the MSOs, you'll talk about all the things, those buzzwords, you'll become familiar with them, and then you watch videos. I'd invite everyone, you can go to cannabis.tv, that's KANNABIZ.tv. That is my video news portal. So if you don't want to read, get on the site and you click the drop down. So if any video that was for medicinal, you can watch the videos and learn. Legislative, financial. But again, you put forth that effort every day, an hour at least, to do the research to get the information.
Thank you so much. I do the same thing. I'm on Google, I'm on LinkedIn, trying to fight. Yeah, but you just have to go so fast. The science moves fast,
Yes.
The compliance. So if you don't stay up to date, you're just going to get left behind. So I want to hear from Kimberly and Justin as well. So Kimberly, how do you stay up to date the news and what's happening?
Yeah, so, well, just naturally a part of my job, I have to stay up to date with rules and regulations. I am a part of a workshop with the MRA as well. And then for the company that I work for, naturally, I'm also always doing research on other markets, whether that's on a national or international scale. But other than whatever is a part of my job, I have a personal interest in research on cannabis. So it's just my nerdy background, I guess. And, when you think of the cannabis industry, you don't really tend to think of business and medicine or research or the different cannabinoids, but I kind of feel like we might be seeing that in the future. So I try to stay up to date in different ways and think of which way the cannabis industry is going. I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing more about, pharmaceutical companies, cannabis. So just my nerdy self, that's mainly what I look into. But on a day-to-day, I'm always keeping up with the MRA, looking into other markets in different states as cannabis becomes more legalized. And I look at, news about federal legalization. Those are the types of things that I keep up with.
So much, Kimberly. And how about you, Justin?
Similar to Colette, LinkedIn, and I have Google alerts for anything around cannabis, anything around news, and in every state that I work in. For the legalities and like the regulations and stuff, it's really hard to keep up. I'm working in multiple states with multiple different license types. So for that, I'm literally just like on all the email lists. You can sign up for all the email lists for the cannabis rules, and they will send you any updates that come out. So it's forever reading and just kind of studying what's going on in the industry. Myself, I try to block out some of the bigger noise that's out there. You know, every time a bill gets passed into Congress for legalization, everybody wants to write 100 articles about it. So I try to focus on what's worth it to read and what's not. Colette seems like she reads everything, which seems so challenging for me personally. So I just try to focus on what's more in my lane, and try not to focus on all the noise on the outside, because there is a lot in this industry, a lot of people with opinions. So finding good people who seem to have the right drive and the right reason for writing the article are the people that I'm looking for. And then there's a handful of people on LinkedIn who post a lot of great content. So just trying to stay up as much as possible, but it is very, very difficult.
It is so much. And you just mentioned something. So as we were talking, I realized there's a difference between what you do versus what Colette and Kimberly do. Colette and Kimberly try to set up everybody for success from the, hey, let's get your business plan, let's get you going, let's make sure you have your fundamentals right, your funding, so on and so forth, which is wonderful. Then once they actually go into being in business, this is when you step in and you help them with actually running their business on a day-to-day, making sure it's going well. So I just wanted to ask you, what types of issues do you get from your clients? What types of problems do you work on? Do you try to solve for them? You know, any stories that you want to tell us, any interesting ones?
Yeah, a lot of my initial work is based around metric and compliance. So making sure people's inventories are correct. I've been very retail focused, and inventory control is probably the toughest one to tackle. Everyone's inventory is kind of out of control usually, especially in like legacy dispensaries that are then transitioning to metric. You know, in California, I saw people who had, you know, things in their inventory that were like 10 years old, and it was like a 2-gram bag of shake that they just had stuffed in the back of their safe. And now, you know, I'm trying to go through and clean everything up, and I'm finding, you know, 40 little bags in the back of their safe with all these things. So keeping inventory really tight is definitely something that I see the biggest issue with, whether it's on the farm level, distributors, especially distributors in California, because they're working on such large levels. So those are kind of the big ones that I see.
Well, thank you so much. And I think we're actually at the end of our panel. Was longer. This is always very informative for me. I'm always learning, and I love to learn. So before we get going, though, I just want to thank our panelists. I want to thank everybody for being present in the chat. So I'm just going to ask for a quick request. So Colette, Kimberly, and Justin, if you all are still available for the next 15 to 30 minutes, would you mind just hanging out in the networking area? So everybody in the chat, the networking area is where you can meet people. I would love for you to have a conversation with these fine folks and hopefully learn and connect with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you guys
Thanks,
so
everybody.
much.
It was a pleasure. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Success to you. Thank you.